What's up, everyone? Welcome to episode 27 of the Bronx and Big Blue Breakdown. I'm your host, Brady Heslin, and today I'm going to be breaking down various Giants position coach hires, along with the Yankees pitchers and catchers officially reporting for spring training. So I'll start with the Giants just because there's more news there, but going forward, I'll probably start starting these episodes with the Yankees because they will be the ones that are in season. But the big news is that the Giants today they hired Brian Callahan as their quarterbacks coach. So Callahan got an interview for the offensive coordinator position. Obviously, they end up going with Matt Nagy, but he gets the quarterbacks coach job. So I'll quickly run through his resume. In the past 2 years, he's been the Titans head coach. Before that, from 2019 to 2023, he was the Bengals offensive coordinator. So he was the offensive coordinator when they went to the Super Bowl. In 2018, he was the Raiders quarterbacks coach. 2016 to 2017, he was the Lions quarterbacks coach. 2013 to 2015, he was the Broncos offensive assistant. 2011 2012, Broncos quality control coach. So he's worked with Burrow, Derek Carr, Matthew Stafford. I mean, you could say he worked with Peyton Manning, but I mean, he was only an offensive assistant or quality control coach. But I like the hire overall. Obviously, working with those types of quarterbacks, and going from head coach to quarterbacks coach, and he's clearly very qualified for this position. The only thing that worries me is I wasn't super impressed with Cam Ward this year. I do think he got better as the year went on, and Callahan got fired mid-year, so that kind of worries me a little bit. Will Levis also didn't look great, but I also think part of it is Will Levis isn't all that great, even though I could see him going to like a Kyle Shanahan or Sean McVay offense and being kind of like a Sam Darnold project. But yeah, the big thing is John Harbaugh is building a very experienced staff. A lot of former head coaches, a lot of former offensive coordinators, former college head coaches. So he's building a very experienced staff. And yeah, so Brian Callahan, quarterbacks coach, will be working with Jackson Dart a lot. And it's kind of funny that now Brian Dable is working with Cam Ward and Brian Callahan is working with Jackson Dart. So that's a pretty funny dynamic there. Another hire is Greg Roman is a senior offensive assistant. I love this hire. I really do. I'm glad they brought in Greg Roman, not as the offensive coordinator, but just as an assistant. I hope he has a big say on the run game and maybe not as much of a say on the passing game. But just let me read you his rushing rankings. So I'm going to start from last year, 2025, go down all the way to 2011. 12th, 17th, 2nd, 3rd, 1st, 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 4th, 3rd, 4th, 8th. This is a guy who knows how to build a good run game. And that was one of my biggest flaws with Matt Nagy is his running game, especially in Kansas City. Their running game has not been great the past couple years. But Greg Roman, his first 11 years as an offensive coordinator, had a top 8 rushing offense. In the past 2 years, he's been at 17th and 12th. But the Chargers, we all know their offensive line has been super injured. Their running backs have been really injured, and they've been throwing the ball a lot more. Like the past 2 years has been the most that Greg Roman has thrown the ball as an offensive coordinator during his time in that role. So yeah, I'm really happy with this hire. I hope he doesn't have much of an influence on the passing game because his passing games do have a ceiling. And looking down the line, the thing that kind of worries me is Matt Nagy gets fired. Greg Roman's the interim offensive coordinator, but I'm not really trying to worry about that. I just want to focus on this run game. I think Tyler Linderbaum comes more into play as a free agent now that they hired Greg Roman. I wasn't really big on that train until seeing this. I can read through the rest of his resume. So 2024, 2025, Chargers offensive coordinator. 2019, 2022, Ravens offensive coordinator. 2018, Ravens tight end coach / assistant head coach. 2017, Ravens tight ends coach. 2015, 2016, Bills OC. 2011 to 2014, 49ers OC. 2009, 2010, Stanford associate head coach. 2008, Holy Spirit offensive coordinator. 2006, 2007, Ravens offensive line assistant. 2004, 2005, Texans quarterbacks coach. 2002, 2003, Texans tight ends coach. So a lot of experience. He's been an offensive coordinator for 4 different teams. Been a coordinator for both of the Harbaughs, Jim Harbaugh twice, and then Rex Ryan. So I'm glad he's not the offensive coordinator, but I'm really happy he's on the staff. I'm going to build this run game, with Scadaboo, Tracy, Dart, and I know people can say, oh, well, he's had Lamar, who's a good runner, Tyrod Taylor, who's a good runner. But, so is Jackson Dart, So am I expecting them to have the number one rushing offense next year? No, I'm not. But I'd like for them to be at the minimum a league average running offense because that will help Jackson Dart a lot, take some off of his plate, and they'll just open up the rest of the playbook. He also, Jackson Dart's going to really have to learn, how to be better in play action roles because if they have this good of a run game, the play action will open up big time. So super happy with the Greg Roman hire. Next I will talk about, I can't talk, is Mike Bloomgren. He is the offensive line coach. So arguably the most important position coach is the offensive line coach, and the Giants went with Mike Bloomgren, who was the Browns offensive line coach last year, and he was the Rice head coach 7 years before that. Before his time as Rice head coach, he was the Stanford offensive coordinator / O-line coach / assistant head coach. 2011, 2012, he was Stanford O-line coach, run game coordinator. 2009, 2010, Jets offensive assistant. 2007, 2008, Jets quality control. There's no way to really sugarcoat it. The Browns had a terrible offensive line last year. They were old, they were injured, they were bad, and their numbers don't look good. But he was only there for 1 year. I'm hoping that we can be better with the Giants, obviously, and be given some more time and some better players to work with this offensive line. So he's got to work closely with Matt Nagy, and then Nagy will be working close with Roman and Callahan, and there's a lot of experience here. Again, this is a former college head coach, so the offensive coordinator's head coach experience, the quarterback's coach's head coach experience, the senior offensive assistant's been an OC for 4 different teams, been an assistant head coach, associate head coach, and then Bloomgren college head coach. So just a ton of experience with this staff. I don't really have a ton to take away. I mean, he did some good things in Stanford. David DeCastro was one name there that stood out. Obviously, Christian McCaffrey was there as well during his time as OC there. So, getting low on battery there, but yeah. So, just kind of wait and see with this hire. It's not like they're getting a super experienced NFL O-line coach that can really break down, but I wish they kept Carmen Bracillo, honestly, but again, gotta trust, John Harbaugh and see what he can do. The next guy I will talk about is the new linebackers coach, Frank Bush. And you want to talk about experience. Let me read through this guy's resume. So, past 2 seasons, he's been the Titans linebackers coach under Denard Wilson. 2021, 2023, Falcons linebackers coach. 2019, 2020, he was the assistant head coach / linebackers coach / assistant or interim defensive coordinator. 2017, 2018, assistant head coach / linebackers coach. 2013, 2016, Rams linebackers coach. 2011, 2012, Titans linebackers coach. 2009, 2010, Texans defensive coordinator. And then he was defensive assistant, just more of that stuff. I don't want to read the entire thing, but his first role in the NFL, 1993, 1994, he was the Oilers linebackers coach. So that is just how much experience this guy has. This guy's been working with linebackers for over 30 years in the NFL. So just a ton of experience with Frank Bush. And, this linebacker group, they need some work, obviously. We'll see if Okereke is even on the team next year. It could be a cap casualty. Micah McFadden's a free agent. Muasau, I don't think is all that good. So they're going to have to make some upgrades. And Frank Bush, has a lot of work cut out for him. next year with this group of linebackers. In the final hire that we'll talk about, I don't have a ton for this guy, but Addison Lynch was hired as the defensive backs coach. He's been with the Broncos the past 3 years and was their defensive backs coach last year. I mean, the Broncos have had a super good defense. Obviously, you have Pat Surtain in there and a couple other guys. So hopefully he can bring some of that over to the Giants. So all in all, the past week they've hired Brian Callahan as quarterbacks coach, Greg Roman, senior offensive assistant, Mike Bloomgren, offensive line coach, Frank Bush, linebackers coach, and then Addison Lynch as the defensive backs coach. So I did this last week, but I'll do it again. The staff is basically set. Unless Charlie Bullen gets a defensive coordinator job, then we'll be looking for an outside linebackers coach. But here is the staff for the Giants. Let me just get it pulled up here. I have the entire list on my phone. So, head coach, John Harbaugh. Offensive coordinator, Matt Nagy. Defensive coordinator, Denard Wilson. Special teams coordinator, Chris Horton. Senior assistant, Greg Roman. Quarterbacks, Brian Callahan. Running backs, Willie Taggart. Wide receivers, Chad Hall. Tight end, Tim Kelly. Offensive line, Mike Bloomgren. Defensive line, Dennis Johnson. Outside linebackers, Charlie Bullen. Linebackers, Frank Bush. And defensive backs, Donald DeLessio. So that is the staff for the Giants. So looks like it's all set. And we can now jump into the this week in history, because again, I'm going to keep it separate as I did last week. So I'll be doing Giants stuff first, and then I will be jumping into Yankees stuff. So on February 5th, 2012, the Giants won Super Bowl 46. They defeated the New England Patriots 21-17. Eli Manning led a clutch fourth quarter drive, capped by an Ahmad Bradshaw touchdown, giving the Giants their fourth Super Bowl title and their second win over Tom Brady and the Patriots. All I'll say about this is, after watching the Super Bowl, as I do pretty much I watch Super Bowl every year, but this thought runs through my mind pretty much every year. But I would say especially this year, because the Giants have a lot of optimism behind them with John Harbaugh and some young guys or whatever. I just can't wait for this team to get to the Super Bowl. I cannot wait, and I know that sounds so obvious, but I'm gonna be so nervous. I'm gonna be a wreck that entire day. I already know. If they lose, I'll be devastated. But if they win a Super Bowl, I will be on cloud nine. I mean, I just can't wait for this team to be competitive, be in the playoff hunt every year. I feel like as fans, I don't know the best way to put it, but it's like we pretty much gotten to the expectations that we're gonna have a losing team every year, and just once that switches, in our minds, I'm so excited for this team to get back to the promised land. And the Seahawks and Patriots are two teams that didn't make the playoffs last year, and they went all the way to the Super Bowl. So do I expect the Giants to go to the Super Bowl next year? No, I don't. But I'm hoping they're competitive, playing meaningful football in December, and hopefully into January, and making a push, for a wild card spot. Ideally a division title, but probably a wild card spot next season. So looking forward, I'm going to begin, preparing for free agency and the draft. I mean, the coaching staff is set, so I can now begin, looking at the, pending free agents for the Giants, potential options in free agency. Joe Schoen's got to get creative with some cap space. They don't have a ton of space right now, but there's a lot of guys that they could cut. You have Okereke, Graham Gano, Devin Singletary. Those are just a couple guys. James Hudson, some guys off the top of my head that they could cut to create some space. They'll probably do some restructures and whatnot. So yeah, just excited to really get the offseason underway. The coaching staff stuff is finally done. So start getting ready for the draft and free agency. So now we can move on to the Yankees, and their big news this week is they re-signed Paul Goldschmidt. He got a 1-year, $4 million deal, can earn another $2 million in incentives, and I really like this deal. I know the Yankees are getting a lot of hate for just kind of running back, that team, but the lineup's not what I have an issue with. If you've watched, past episodes, would I want them to bring in another catcher or someone at shortstop or whatever, uh, maybe a better hitting third baseman? Like, yeah, but look across the league. It's tough to get 1 through 9. All those guys be offensive threats and good in the field. Like, that doesn't work. So I'm fine with them running back, the best lineup in baseball in the regular season, running that same lineup back this year, and hopefully they can perform better in the playoffs. But I like getting Paul Goldschmidt back. Still a good defender, still can hit lefties, but good platoon option. I really hope Rice gets a majority of the at bats, and I think that's the plan. Really want him to still get an opportunity to hit against lefties. But Paul Goldschmidt's a great backup option. Maybe Stanton goes down at some point because that kind of feels inevitable. He can step in and be a DH against lefties, um, and that kind of thing. So still sneaky good base runner. He's pretty smart in that department. Good leadership. So glad to have him back. Super cheap deal as well. For the second straight year, he took less money to join the Yankees. So that says a lot about him right there. Yeah, so I'm just glad he's back. Hope he can mentor Ben Rice more, and Ben Rice can turn into a star in the MLB. And the other big piece of news is pitchers and catchers have officially reported today. Pitchers and catchers reported, but reportedly about 80 to 90% of the team is already in Tampa. I know Judge is already there. Jazz is there. Just a bunch of those guys are already in camp, so that's huge, and that is really just because of Aaron Judge and his leadership as the captain, getting those guys into Tampa early and starting this push for the 28th world title. Another piece of good news are there's no offseason injuries, so everyone that we thought was healthy is healthy going into camp, and we don't really see that a ton. With the Yankees, I feel like every year there's a guy or two that come in hurt, but everyone's healthy. Giancarlo Stanton's healthy, which is huge. So it seems like a lot of guys are on good track too. Like Garrett Cole, could pitch late in some spring training games. When I say that, I mean like later on in spring training, not just late in games. So that's huge in his progress, and that's the big thing with this year's Yankees team. I think that's what Brian Cashman's banking on. I think that's what Aaron Boone is banking on. If Garrett Cole can come back and be Garrett Cole, this team's a World Series contender. I mean, I think they are one of, if not the best team in the American League, and they are a World Series contender. I mean, you have Cole, Rodon, Fried. I mean, that might be the best 1, 2, 3 in the MLB. And then you got Schlittler, you have Heel, Warren, Schmidt. I mean, this is a really strong rotation when healthy, and if all those guys are, playing at the standard that we think they can. Obviously, I doubt all those guys are going to stay healthy throughout the year. That's basically impossible in today's MLB. But yeah, that's huge for his development. I guess Rodon's doing pretty well too. Volpe's starting a hitting program in a week or two, so that's a good thing. Hopefully, he needs to have a good year this year, or he's got to go. This is my final straw with Anthony Volpe. If he's not good this year, he's got to go. I also saw something. I'm not sure if it's true. I should have fact checked it. I believe it is, but I saw on X that if the Yankees have Volpe in the minors for a month, it would delay his arbitration, and he wouldn't be a free agent until 2029. We'll see if that's something that they do, with his injury and the rehab process. I doubt they do that though, with how much they protect him. Jason Dominguez also could start the year in AAA. It's pretty rare you see a guy play an entire year in the MLB and then go play in AAA, but he doesn't really have much of a spot on this roster when he'd be the fourth outfielder. But you want to get him playing. And I do think Trent Grisham accepting the qualifying offer is something they weren't really expecting. Um, I'm kind of in the minority that I'm fine he accepted it. I guy that hit like 30 some home runs last year and plays Gold Glove defense, but oh, we don't want him on the team. Like I know he was terrible in the postseason, but I'm glad he's on the team. Um, yeah, that's about all the notes I have. I'm so happy baseball is back. Like baseball is back. Spring training has begun. So just, there will be nonstop, baseball content, baseball news from now all the way up until October. So just super excited for the season to get going. World Baseball Classic in less than a month. If you guys want me to, I could kind of do a Team USA or whatever breakdown. There are a lot of Yankees. Actually, why don't I talk about that a little bit as well? I'll talk about the Yankees that are playing in the World Baseball Classic because there is a good amount. Hopefully, none of those guys get hurt. I mean, that would be tragic. Um, but so Aaron Judge and David Bednar are on Team USA. Aaron Judge is the captain of Team USA. You got Fernando Cruz and Elmer Rodriguez playing for Puerto Rico, Jose Caballero playing for Panama, Jazz Chisholm and Brendan Beck are playing for Great Britain. Excuse me. Harrison Cohen is playing for Israel, and then Austin Wells, Camilo Doval, and Ahmed Rosario are playing for the Dominican Republic. So we'll get an early look at some current Yankee players and some future Yankees players. You got Rodriguez, Cohen, Beck, some prospects in there as well, trying to make a name for themselves. Hopefully Doval, Cruz, and Bednar, they get some high adrenaline reps. So I think that's big for relievers. And then, Judge, Caballero, Chisholm, all those hitters are getting, some, more pressured, higher adrenaline, bigger stakes at bats before the year, which I think can help as well compared to spring training games that don't really matter and that kind of thing. So I'm personally really excited for World Baseball Classic. I enjoyed it a ton when they did it 3 years ago, and I'm glad it's back and a lot of good players are playing in it. Fortunately, Corbin Carroll got hurt for Team USA, but yeah, I'm really excited for it. Should be a fun time. A lot of good players playing in it this year, as I said earlier. So, for this week in history, February 7th, 2009, the Yankees officially introduced CC Sabathia. He was their new ace, and it was a record contract at the time for a pitcher, and Sabathia would be on the staff and their leader through the 2009 World Series run. So that was obviously a huge signing for the Yankees. He's wearing that Yankees cap in Cooperstown. So yeah, and then looking forward, first spring training game is February 20th. So 9 days away. About a week. Next week's episode, I can go through more of the spring training schedule and maybe talk about some guys to watch for spring training, some guys that might be on the bubble of potentially making the roster. So yeah, kind of not a ton of news this week. Just a couple Giants hires, and just really just baseball's back along with Paul Goldschmidt. So just super excited for baseball to be back. Excited to get in the swing of things with the offseason for the Giants. So please like, subscribe, follow wherever you are watching or listening. And until next time, let's go Yankees and let's go Giants.